Hi, I'm Bob Haas from Pivot3, and I'm here to speak about the HCI Efficiency Difference. Pivot3, we've been in business since 2002, been primarily focused in the video surveillance area for the first 10 years or so. Spent about the first 5 of those 10 years actually doing a lot of the research and development side of things from a software standpoint on our software-defined storage solution. We have about 1,800 customers to date. 16,000 appliances have been sent out across the world into 53 countries, and over 400 plus petabytes of storage is under management by Pivot3. We cover a wide gamut of industries, so from hospitals to education organizations, managed services, the gaming institutions, retail, transportation, and governmental organizations. You can see that we have quite an array of prominent customers across the bottom there, with customers in both enterprise and video surveillance areas. We've been working with Veeam for the last few years on solutions for the managed services providers and driving data towards managed service providers and their environments. Pivot3 is very unique in its architecture. It is a very scalable architecture in that we will start with one appliance, and then we can actually scale all the way up to 12 of those in our hybrid model and 16 of those in our all-flash arrays. So we increment by one, so it is a very granular, scalable product. Effortless-wise, we are a solution that is very easy to manage. The management of it is such that any non-IT type person can actually use it. It was originally developed for our video surveillance customers, which are predominantly non-IT experts. So it's very effortless from that standpoint for us to be able to manage it and to add to the environment as we grow, be able to manage it on a daily basis. Resiliency was really built into the product from the very beginning. So because of it being primarily focused at the video surveillance environment, it is one that has the zero downtime type of a mentality. We have, if you think about it, no frames can be lost from a video feed. So the resiliency that we have, the ability to fail one appliance or to fail multiple drives in an environment is really built in from the very beginning, and really because of the storage background that we have as a product. Efficiency-wise, probably the most efficient hyper-converged product on the market to date. I'll talk a little bit more about that and how efficient it is, but efficiency is built in, and when you're talking about petabytes of storage from the video surveillance environment, you can actually see why we are very efficient from that standpoint. And performance, the way that we lay the data out across the spindles or across the drives within the environment provides a performance level unlike any others. It is the performance that also from a overhead kind of capability, we try to minimize the amount of compute that we actually take out of the environment. So we'll be about 10% efficient from a performance standpoint. We'll take about 10% of the overall compute capacity, and thus leaving about 90% of the compute still available for other things within the environment. So across the board, the Pivot3 architecture is very unique. We also have the ability to scale not only from the compute and storage standpoint, but also the storage independently. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of go along here in the presentation. So managed service providers, very unique kinds of challenges for them. Obviously improving the tenant density is important and lowering that footprint, so keeping the floor tiles to a minimum is very important, and getting the most customers and multi-tenancy that you can from a product is very important. Cost containment, so power, cooling, and any other management type of expenses, all are very important to maintain those as very low as possible. Expansions and consolidations. Expansions as customers come in, those are challenges that managed services providers address on a daily basis, along with the consolidation of those customers as they merge together or whatever it might be. So scalability, resiliency, as I mentioned, are important to us as a product from Pivot3, but are also important to managed service providers too, and the ability to have a flexible offering, flexibility to be able to change with the advent of, or with the ways of the customers and so forth, are challenges that service providers provide, and we as Pivot3 try to address those and make those easier for managed service providers to actually handle. So how do we do that? We do that through our HCI efficiencies. We can reduce the capital investments by as much as 80%. We can address the physical floor footprint by consolidating servers and storage together. That reduces that physical footprint. So HCI in general across the board will give you a 50% decrease in footprint. And because of that consolidation, that convergence of those two, we also can reduce the amount of energy costs too. So what does that provide to the service providers? Increased revenue, lower data center costs, lower management costs, and overall improvement in your return on investment. So storage efficiency, I mentioned that is one of the key features that Pivot3 brings, and that above and beyond the HCI efficiencies of being able to consolidate both servers and storage together. Our efficiency across the board is leading in the HCI area. So traditionally, storage has about 70% usability. So the user space, the usable space after from a raw is about 70%. Our other HCI providers that utilize replication for resiliency purposes do replication, and they're only about 33% efficient across the board. No matter how many units that they have, they're going to be about 33%, along with the legacy ones that are about 70%. However, as we grow the environment, we will go from 70%, about 66% efficient for a three node system, all the way up to 94% efficient. So as the system grows, as you add more and more customers, more and more tenants to the environment, more and more data and nodes to the environment, we actually become more efficient, and along with that, we also become more performance. We add more performance because of the way we lay the data out, utilizing erasure coding to spread the data out across all of the spindles within all of the appliances and utilize all of the resources within there. So overall, that gives you a 2 to 3 times the usable space that you'll see with any of the other solutions that might be out there. So scalability. We have the ability to scale the environment, like I said earlier, independently from storage. Compute and storage is one node, so that's the bottom one here in this picture. That is where you could run both the disaster recovery workload. The Veeam software can also be run on there. The cloud gateway capabilities, all of that could be run on that storage and compute node. And then as part of that, we can also scale then also the data side of things and actually add a data cube or data appliances to that to run the actual cloud repository. And we can actually scale those environments independently of each other. And so we can grow the compute and storage side of that as the storage and compute needs go. But as the needs might grow from a storage standpoint, we can actually grow that. And therefore, those can stay in balance versus sometimes where you'll actually get an out of balance where you'll end up with more compute than you might need than for storage. So the ability to be able to do that is very critical for service providers and being able to add more scale from a storage standpoint while also just providing just the minimum amounts of compute needs for the disaster recovery workload. So also part of our resiliency capabilities, the ability to do some things at the volume level, virtualized volumes, gives us the ability to allow service providers to have flexible rate cards. The ability to have different resiliency levels give you the ability to have different protection levels, flexible protection levels, and charge for different rates at those. So rates at RAID 1 could be different from the rates that you might charge for a RAID 5 resiliency or even RAID 6 type resiliencies. So the interesting thing about those is that at the volume level, these rates, these protection levels are set, and therefore we can non-disruptively change those resiliencies levels. So you could go from a RAID 5 volume to a RAID 6 volume non-disruptively to the customers, provide and change the rate structure for that customer at that point, and overall, with that flexibility of those rate cards, be able to address the differing needs for multiple tenants within the environment or different within the customers themselves. So the ability to have this flexible protection levels can allow for different tenants to have different protection levels or different protection levels for a particular tenant. So how does this bring all this together with the Veeam Cloud Connect? So by utilizing Veeam's award-winning software at both the premise on-premise for the customers and being able to do the backup repository on the either legacy type of systems. It doesn't really matter what kind of systems they might be. They might be Pivot3 or they might be traditional servers and storage separated in silos. Either way, utilizing the Veeam software to drive that data and drive that to an off-premise service provider and have that be an efficient Pivot3 solution on the backside of it, being able to scale that to address the needs of the service provider and be able to run all of the different components that make up the Veeam software solution, gives us the best of both worlds, the best of all breeds, and gives us a very unique type solution. So to wrap it up here, Pivot3 is the difference in hyperconvergence. We use off-the-shelf compatible type hardware. We provide a smaller footprint by utilizing the convergence of software-defined storage and compute. A VMware hypervisor will bring all of those together. It gives us granular scaling starting from one appliance all the way up to 16 of those appliances. The ease of use of being able to add and subtract, actually be able to adjust the number of nodes assigned to a customer or to an array, being able to adjust those easily and with just multiples of just 3 or 4 clicks, makes it very nice from a management standpoint. And flexibility, being able to do that adding and subtracting of nodes, being able to adjust the protection levels of the LUNs dependent upon the customer needs, and then also the high density and the efficiencies of the storage from a Pivot3 by the use of our erasure coding and how we lay that data out and get you that 94% available space on the solution. It really drives that higher density and returns some of those capital investment costs. So scalability, storage efficiency, all of those brought together as the Pivot3 hyperconverged solution, really, and that along with the Veeam software provides one of the best solutions that couldn't be any better. With that, I appreciate the time and your interest in this, and thank you.